There is a recipe from 1942 that replaced meat entirely with an ingredient that costs less than 50 cents. Not a side dish, not a supplement. A full protein replacement. It fed soldiers on 3 continents and kept 20 million American families alive during rationing. The United States Department of Agriculture printed it in official cookbooks and mailed it to every household that requested one. It produced the same protein as beef at 1/10 the cost. Then the war ended. And within 5 years, the government pulled every cookbook, erased every pamphlet, and buried the recipe so deep that 3 generations never heard of it. They did not stop using it because it failed. They stopped because it worked too well. A protein source that costs 50 cents, needs no refrigeration, and replaces a $12 steak cannot be sold by the meat industry. And what cannot be sold must be forgotten. This is the story of the wartime recipe that kept an empire fed and the industry that made sure you would never learn it. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If these stories matter to you, the subscribe button and the bell are the best way to preserve this knowledge. This is where we dig up what the industry buried. To understand what happened, you have to go back to December 1941. Pearl Harbor had just been attacked, and America entered the war overnight. But the real crisis was not on the battlefield. It was in the kitchen. The War Production Board immediately redirected 60% of all domestic meat to military supply lines. Beef, pork, chicken, everything with protein suddenly had a ration stamp on it. An average American family of 4 went from eating meat 5 times a week to maybe once. The government had a problem that no army could solve. How do you feed 130 million civilians when the protein supply just vanished? The answer came from an unlikely place. A laboratory at the University of Illinois had been quietly studying soybeans since 1936. A food scientist named Harry Miller, sometimes called the China Doctor, had spent decades in Asia watching entire civilizations thrive on a single legume. He had documented how Japanese and Chinese families consumed soy in over 40 different preparations: fermented, ground, pressed, dried, roasted, each method unlocking different nutrients from the same bean. Miller brought his research back to the United States and published a paper that landed on the desk of the USDA in January 1942. The timing was perfect, or rather desperate. Within 60 days, the USDA created a special division called the Bureau of Home Economics. Their sole mission was to teach Americans how to survive without meat. They developed over 200 recipes using soy grits, soy flour, and processed soy meal as direct meat replacements, not as a garnish, not as a filler, as the main protein. The Bureau printed a booklet called Soybeans for the Table and distributed 700,000 copies in the first year alone. Eleanor Roosevelt herself endorsed the program. She served soy loaf at White House luncheons and told reporters it tasted better than meatloaf. The key recipe, the one that changed everything, was called Victory Soy Loaf. It combined 1 cup of soy grits with breadcrumbs, onion, a splash of tomato sauce, and whatever seasoning was available. Total cost per serving in $1943, about 7 cents. Adjusted for today, roughly 50 cents. The protein content was nearly identical to ground beef, 21 grams per serving. Families from Detroit to Dallas started making it 3, 4, 5 times a week. By 1944, soy consumption in American households had increased by 800%. 800% in 2 years. The program worked so well that the military started using the same recipes in mess halls overseas. General Eisenhower reportedly received a briefing on soy logistics in early 1944 because the ingredient was solving supply chain problems that no military strategist had anticipated. Soy was lighter than canned meat. It lasted longer. It cost almost nothing to transport. A 50-pound bag of soy grits could feed a platoon for a week. The same weight in canned beef lasted 3 days. This video is just the surface. I have collected everything the food and outdoor industry does not want you to know, all in the complete Forbidden Camping vault. Wartime recipes that replaced expensive protein with ingredients that cost pennies, preservation methods that kept food edible for months without refrigeration or electricity, forgotten fire techniques that military field units used and that are now classified as outdated, emergency shelters that cost nothing and outperformed $200 tents, natural foraging guides that indigenous peoples mastered centuries ago, and much more. Over 10 guides in one place, no fluff, straight to the point. The link is in the description. But stay here. The video is just getting started. Now, here is where the numbers get serious. A 1943 study from Cornell University tested soy grits against beef, pork, and chicken in controlled nutrition trials. The results were not even close. 1 cup of cooked soy grits delivered 21 grams of complete protein. The same volume of ground beef delivered 23 grams, a difference of less than 10%. But the cost difference was not 10%. It was over 90%. Soy grits cost roughly 2 cents per serving in 1943. Ground beef cost 22 cents. Same protein, 1/10 the price. The Cornell team also measured iron content. Soy grits contained 8.8 milligrams of iron per cup. Beef contained 2.6. That is more than 3 times the iron at a fraction of the cost. A follow-up study at the University of Illinois in 1944 measured calcium absorption. Soy grits provided nearly 175 milligrams of calcium per serving. Beef provided 12. The researchers called soy a nutritional anomaly because it outperformed animal protein in almost every micronutrient category except vitamin B12. And here's the part they did not advertise. The fiber content of soy grits is 10 grams per cup. Beef has 0. The 1944 Surgeon General Report quietly noted that digestive complaints among families using soy-based rations dropped by 30% compared to pre-war levels. Not because soy was magic, because Americans were finally eating fiber. But the most stunning number came from the economic side. The USDA calculated that if every American household replaced just 3 meat meals per week with soy-based alternatives, the nation would save over $4 billion annually in today's money. $4 billion that would not flow into the pockets of meat packers, feedlot operators, and cold storage companies. And a 1945 internal USDA memo, declassified decades later, stated plainly that soy grits represented the single most cost-effective protein source available to the American consumer. The memo recommended making the soy program permanent after the war. That memo was never acted on, not because the science was wrong, because the science was too right. If you have made it this far, you already know more about wartime nutrition than 99% of people. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to remember what they made us forget. And remember, everything the industry buried is in the complete vault. Link in the description. Now stay with me. The next vault is the heaviest. So why did this recipe disappear? Why is it not in every school cafeteria, every camping kitchen, every survival kit in America? Here is where the story turns dark. When the war ended in 1945, the American meat industry was in crisis, not because it was failing, because it had competition. For 4 years, 130 million Americans had learned to live without regular meat. Soy consumption was at an all-time high. Families had adapted. They had recipes. They had habits. The National Livestock and Meat Board, a powerful industry lobby group, saw the numbers and panicked. If Americans kept eating soy 3 to 5 times a week, the beef industry would lose an estimated 40% of its domestic market. 40%. In today's dollars, that is roughly $68 billion in annual revenue. The Meat Board launched a campaign in 1946 that historians now call the protein correction. They funded studies designed to cast doubt on plant-based proteins. They paid nutritionists to publish articles claiming that soy was an incomplete food. They lobbied the USDA to reclassify soy from a primary protein to a supplementary ingredient. By 1948, the USDA had quietly discontinued the Bureau of Home Economics. The 700,000 copies of Soybeans for the Table were never reprinted. School lunch programs, which had incorporated soy during the war, were restructured with new guidelines that required animal protein as the centerpiece of every meal. The National School Lunch Act of 1946, signed by President Truman, mandated meat, milk, and eggs in school cafeterias. Soy was not mentioned once in the legislation. Not because it did not work, because it could not be controlled. You cannot patent a soybean. You cannot create a version that farmers need to buy every year when they can save their own seed. You cannot generate dependency when a family can grow their own protein in a backyard garden for almost nothing. The entire economic model of the post-war American food industry required consumers to depend on expensive, perishable, industrially processed animal protein. A 50-cent ingredient that lasts months on a shelf and delivers the same nutrition as a $12 steak represents everything that model fights against. So soy had to be repositioned, not banned outright. That would be too obvious. Instead, it was quietly moved to the margins, classified as animal feed, reduced to an industrial input. Today, over 70% of all soybeans grown in the United States go to livestock feed. The cow eats the soy, you eat the cow, and you pay $12 for what could have cost you 50 cents. The markup is not 10%, it is not 100%, it is over 2,000%. And the industry prayed you would never do that math, but it gets worse. In 1952, the American Soybean Association, which should have been the natural advocate for soy as human food, pivoted entirely to promoting soy as animal feed. Why? Because the livestock industry was their biggest customer. Selling soy to feedlots was more profitable than selling it to families because the volume was staggering. One dairy cow consumes more soy in a week than a family of 4 would in a month. The association that should have championed the wartime recipes became the very organization that helped bury them. By 1960, the phrase soy protein in American culture had become associated with poverty, wartime hardship, and deprivation. Not nutrition, not savings, not independence. That association was not accidental. It was manufactured. Here is what they do not want you to know. The original Victory soy loaf recipe still works, and it is absurdly simple. Take 1 cup of soy grits. You can find them at any bulk food store or order them online for about $3 a pound, which gives you roughly 8 servings. Soak the grits in 2 cups of water for at least 30 minutes. This softens them and activates the protein. While they soak, dice 1 medium onion and 2 cloves of garlic. In a bowl, combine the soaked soy grits with half a cup of breadcrumbs, the diced onion and garlic, 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and a pinch of smoked paprika. Mix it thoroughly. The texture should be thick and moldable like meatloaf batter. Press it into a greased loaf pan or shape it by hand on a baking sheet. Bake at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 minutes. Let it rest for 10 minutes before slicing. The result is a dense, savory loaf with a texture remarkably close to traditional meatloaf. 21 grams of protein per serving, 10 grams of fiber, nearly 9 milligrams of iron, for roughly 50 cents. Now here's the camping angle that changes everything. Soy grits weigh almost nothing when dry. A single pound fits in a sandwich bag and provides 8 full meals. They need no refrigeration, no cooler, no ice. On a 5-day camping trip, you would normally spend $30 to $40 on canned meat, jerky, and freeze-dried meals. A pound of soy grits costs $3 and covers your protein for the entire trip. You can cook them over any campfire with just a pot and water. Add wild onion or garlic mustard from the trail if you want to go full forager. The 1943 USDA guide even included a field version of the recipe designed for military camps, using nothing but a cast iron skillet and an open flame. That version works perfectly on a camping stove or a Dakota fire hole. For long-distance hikers, soy grits are arguably the best protein-to-weight ratio available. Better than jerky, better than canned tuna, better than freeze-dried meals that cost $8 a pouch. And unlike those options, soy grits have been proven across 4 years of wartime feeding programs involving millions of people. This is not some internet trend. This is tested, documented, government-verified nutrition that was deliberately buried. The recipe did not fail. It was erased. Not because it was dangerous, not because it was unhealthy, not because it tasted bad. It was erased because it made a $200 billion industry unnecessary. A 50-cent ingredient that delivers the same protein as steak, lasts months without refrigeration, and can be grown in a backyard garden is the most dangerous thing the food industry has ever faced. Not dangerous to you, dangerous to their profit margin. For 80 years, this recipe sat in declassified archives and yellowed pamphlets, waiting. The USDA knew. The meat industry definitely knew. The soybean is still here, still growing. 20 million families used it to survive the worst war in human history. And you can use it on your next camping trip for 50 cents. This knowledge did not die. It was waiting for someone to open the vault. If this video made a difference, subscribe and share. Every share preserves what the industry tried to erase. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is even heavier.